On this episode of the Insurtech Geek Podcast, we're talking about the world's largest Insurtech community with Tom Robinson from Insurtech Insights. The Insurtech Geek Podcast is all about technology that's transforming and disrupting the insurance world. We'll be interviewing guests and doing deep dives into specific tech we see changing the industry. We're taking you on a journey through insurance tech, so enjoy the ride and geek out. This episode of the Insurtech Geek Podcast is sponsored by Smart Compliance, Certificate of Insurance Management and Tracking. Explore this efficient approach to compliance at smartcompliance.co. And we are back with another great episode. With me today, my illustrious co-host, the most interesting man in insurance, from San Antonio, Texas. Weighing in at, no, we're not going to do that. I'm just kidding. Rob Galbraith. Rob, how you doing?
Doing well, James. Doing well. How you doing? Welcome back to Texas.
I'm glad to be back to Texas. I did record the last episode from across the Pacific Ocean. I was over in Hawaii with my daughter. A great visit out there. I'm adjusting back to Central Standard Time, which is always the rough adjustment when you go east. You always end up jet lagged. And I'm definitely coming out of that, but enjoyed our visit. Got to hear a band I'd love for everybody to check out called Surfaces, Surfaces. It's like surf music, beach vibes. They're from Texas, but they were playing out there in Hawaii, and we went and heard them. They're amazing, and their lead singer Forrest Frank plays some really great music on his own label too. And so that was super cool. And I got to scuba dive for the first time, Rob.
It's amazing.
Like it was amazing. I would say it was a whole new world, but that'd be an Aladdin reference. It was, I really need a Little Mermaid reference. And I can tell you, I was part of its world. There you go. That's the Little Mermaid reference. Pretty incredible. Can't wait to go again. And I can't believe I waited till the ripe age of 44 to go scuba diving for the first time, because that is totally my vibe, being under there. That was neat. With us today, he's from another land as well, but not a land down under. That's the other accent. He's from the land up top, the British Isles, the King's Territory, Mr. Tom Robinson. Tom, how are you doing?
Very well. Speaking from, I was going to say sunny, but just as we sadly clicked record, it's now gone overcast. So London is very much living up to its expectations here. London's doing what London does. Indeed, yeah. It keeps teasing us. It seems to be nice. Spring is on its way. And then it just, changes like the wind. But I'm going to play the classic British role and just, regardless of the weather, complain. It's either too hot, too cold. It's never, just in the middle. But no, it's treating me very well.
Brits have that shtick down, don't they?
Yeah. It's I just think it's part of the education system here. It's a common thing. Just to constantly complain about the weather. I don't know whether it comes from, I don't know, from your upbringing or what, but it's just, and it's always my go-to topic whenever I jump on the phone with someone. My colleagues sort of, when I'm back to back, as we all are these days, they sort of hear the same sort of spiel, but yeah, it's part of the DNA. What can I say?
Tom, that is a very British thing to do. Yeah. What was funny about, Hawaii is that it rained and was sunny at the same time, like all day. And that always trips me up, because no one there uses like a, no one there uses an umbrella. Like I don't know, because they're like, oh, it's raining, it'll be sunny in a second, and then they'll rain in another second. So it's a funny deal. The Brits just complain. It's okay. It's okay. We'll allow you. We're excited that you get to come to the great United States of America on a regular basis for all these great conferences. And I asked you to come on, Tom, because the insurance community is bigger than just people that work at the carriers and the TPAs and the brokers and even at the technology vendors. A big part of where the insurance communities is at conferences. And I always like to talk about what conference organizers are seeing and hearing and what they're organizing, what topics are popular. Because if you really think about where the insurance industry congregates, you think about a list of conferences. And then you think about technology events, and certainly your organization, Insurtech Insights, comes up. You and I met on the road at a conference, at a different organization's conference, but you and I met there. And I was just thinking about the role that these conferences play, because people tend to work from home a lot now, and they have work from anywhere arrangements and mobile arrangements. Kind of the community living room for this industry is our conferences, and you're a big part of that. So welcome to the industry. Glad you're part of it. Glad you're in your new role over there at Insurtech Insights. Tell everybody first about you, because you've really your last 5 years, you've done the bout, you've done the rounds in London. But let's go back before that. Like, where were you born and raised? I think it was Birmingham, but where were you born and raised, and what'd you want to be when you were a kid?
Born and raised in Birmingham, as you mentioned, James. For anyone that doesn't know where Birmingham is in the UK, it's straight bang in the middle of the country. Probably most famous for Peaky Blinders, Cillian Murphy, and the accent, of course. But as you can probably tell, I was blessed.
You don't have it.
I was blessed without having the accent. Just before hopping on the call with Rob and James, I was saying, funny enough, I've got a identical twin brother who does have the accent. Still trying to piece together where that comes from. But no, so born and raised in a place just outside of Birmingham called Solihull. Probably most famous for, I don't know if you guys have heard of Jaguar Land Rover. It's the original plant was based out of Solihull, so that's probably
really,
yeah. So it's quite cool. You see the cars with like all the camo on them, sort of driving out the factory, and obviously they're testing them on the road, so get to see what the new Land Rovers and Range Rovers look like, which is pretty cool. So yep, born and raised there. Then stayed within the Midlands to a college called Loughborough University. It's not that famous, probably sort of worldwide, but it's within the UK. It's known to be the sports university, because sports was a big part of my life for quite a while. A lot of Olympians go there and stuff like that. So that was
awesome. we got to talk about that. So what sport? What were you part of?
So I did triathlon, so that's swim, bike, and then run. Actually was born out in America, and sort of, I'd say 2012, I think I was maybe sort of like, how old was I? 14 then. Triathlon just exploded because there was the Brownlee brothers from the UK, and it sort of, was just sort of really bought into that and the legacy of the Olympics in 2012. Just participated throughout college, and fortunately got to a reasonably high level, sort of like nationally. And then it was great fun.
Did you ever do an Ironman?
No, I didn't do an Ironman. It's still on the list. Buddy of mine was actually in Texas last week doing the Ironman there, and he said that it's extremely hot, but he said it's a wicked event, sort of in your neck of the woods. So I need to make sure I get over there.
Yeah, it's springtime, so it's triathlon time around here, and there it's hard. I mean, that's an intense. The most I've ever done. Never went to an actual triathlon competition. Just did a lot of training for it, and ended up doing a whole bunch of sprint tri training, because I thought that was. I just get bored really easily with one thing, and I love cycling, and I love swimming, and I love running. I love all three. Like, I don't have a least favorite. I think they're all fun. And, I ended up doing a ton of practice and never did a competition. Still on my list. I've got a long bucket list. Scuba diving was on it. That's checked off as of last weekend. So might as well start working on something else. So you went to Loughborough, and then, what was the entry into the insurance sector? Because you actually worked for a little bit as for the Institute of Economic Affairs. What was that about?
Yeah, so sort of adjacent to my sporting accolades at Loughborough, studied politics with economics. And I know you've spoken to people when in your other podcast saying, did you aspire to, work within the insurance world? And very much I wasn't the case. I wanted to be a politician. Weirdly enough, that I thought, I did politics and economics. It's a little bit of a joke here in the UK that, all future politicians want to study that. So studied that. Then Institute of Economic Affairs is what we call a think tank. I know think tanks are pretty big stateside. They're less big here. Fortunately, the IEA is one of the most influential ones within the UK sphere. So yeah, got an internship, got a job out of that. I know it's quite common stateside as well. So became an intern, then a temporary member of staff, and then a full-time member of staff. And that's where the event side of things really came from. Part of the way that they sort of operate is they do these very small scale, I'm talking sort of like 10, 15 people events, trying to spread the ideas and, discuss and bring panelists. Of course, it wasn't this sort of well thought out thing at all. It was just, there's some chairs, there's some people on a stage, and that's really where the event side of things come from.
Yeah. And then you jumped into events, and for the last 2 years, you've been doing insurance events. So what's been your observation of the industry so far? With just the initial insights into what you've seen in insurance in your first couple of years.
Yeah, I think firstly, I think that insurance wrongly gets labeled as typically been labeled as I don't want to say a dull or a boring industry, but it's sort of quite stuck in its ways. And I think that sort of fortunately, life is all about timing. When I jumped into the industry, it sort of was going at a little bit of a million miles an hour. I feel like the likes of Hippo and Lemonade entering the market, and I think that was sort of summarized by the influx of technology into the industry, made it just super exciting. So I think that from an outside of things, I think that it's insurance, it is what it is, sort of thing. It always existed, will always exist. So yeah, I think that's sort of where it came from. It's actually a really exciting time to work within the sphere of insurance because of the influx of technology.
So let's talk about Insurtech Insights. What does this organization do, and what do you do for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Insurtech Insights, we're a platform for insurance executives. Broad range from entry level all the way up to group CEOs. What we do is we produce 3 conferences a year. We had our London conference. I think it was about just over a month ago now, and I know that Rob was there, so perhaps he could have a chat and sort of explain how he thought the vibe was there. Then we have our US show that sort of I'm in charge of on the content side of things, and that's happening June 5th and 6th at the Javits Center in New York City. And then to bookmark the end of the year, we have Hong Kong. That's the first 2 weeks of December. I think the details are still being fleshed out on that one, but a truly global reach to match the global reach of the insurance industry for sure. But yeah, 6,000 people we had in London, expecting the same in New York, and it's a really exciting time to be at ITI. We're going from strength to strength, growing in size, and of course importance, I think, on the conference calendar as well.
Rob, you got to attend. Tell us about the conference, and tell us, why do you think this has become such a popular event? What's the magnet?
Yeah, so I've been fortunate enough to attend both Insurtech Insights Europe and Americas multiple times. I've not made it to Hong Kong yet. The timing has just not worked out. So I've received a kind of invitation and hope to make it there, but heard fantastic things about that event as well. Yeah, and I would agree with Tom. There's a ton of events out there, of course. But I think coming out of COVID, people probably started looking at travel budgets a little bit more and trying to figure out where the bang and the for the buck was. And I think people were maybe a little bit more selective in terms of some of the events. And so to me, Insurtech Insights has definitely been above the bar in terms of just the volume of people going, the top of the line speakers that you guys are able to recruit, and you've been doing this now for several years, and the networking is really second to none. So being able to meet so many different people, from the traditional kind of brokers and carriers to the startups to service providers, you name it, it's really there. So to me, it kind of hits all the spots of the sessions themselves, usually very robust expo hall where there's tons of vendors to kind of meet and get to know, tons of networking opportunities. And then oftentimes there are kind of events going alongside the conference. Often there's an Insurtech week, so there's kind of side events that are happening oftentimes in the evenings during the event. I had one actually a book event prior to the conference. The Europe event is held at the Intercontinental Hotel that's right by the O2 Arena. And for those of you that have never been, the O2 Arena is a venue where they have a lot of concerts and whatnot, but then they have a lot of shopping and restaurants right by it. And the Intercontinental is just a very 5-minute walk away. It's right by the tube, and there's buses and taxis there, so it's actually a very convenient location, kind of in the east center of London. And so to me it has everything that you would want to have just in terms of a venue, great location, the adjacent events, but then the conference itself is well done. And I can tell you from somebody that's participated as a speaker, the Insurtech Insights does a fantastic job. So if you're thinking about it or you get approached to speak at the event, there's a speakers lounge. They're highly organized. They help you set up the prep calls. There's usually somebody from Insurtech Insights, panels I moderated that's on the call. That's very rare compared to other conferences. And just everything is really, very, very well run. We track down people, make sure they get to the right stage.
But Rob,
plenty of time.
Let's talk about the most important thing. How was the food at the conference?
It's funny you ask. So the food is really good. Now, what I would say is, and Tom, I don't know if you were there in London. I was looking for something more, maybe the fish and chips, or
more British.
Or British. Yeah, it was actually very, much more robust than that. But I think for me, I was like walking around, kind of, what is this? What is this? Oh, this looks, intriguing and exotic, whatever. So it's definitely a plethora of food choices there. But I think I was looking for something more mild, and maybe that has to do with the jet lag you were kind of talking about, James. Just getting over there. So anyway, that would be my advice, which you probably should safely ignore, which was make more bland food choices.
See, Tom, I like it spicy and exotic, and I'm the opposite. Give me the weird stuff. You know what I go to London for? Indian food. That's what I go to London for. Just so you know. Tom and Rob, thank you so much for that summary of the event. It's really good insight into the event itself. Can you give us a glimpse? Just let us know kind of what the most anticipated sessions. Certainly we see a lot of AI discussions at a lot of the conferences, but there's a lot of other stuff to talk about. So tell me what some of the most anticipated sessions or the themes for the upcoming events, particularly the one that's coming up in New York.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to, of course, I think that it'd be a mistake not to talk about AI, but at the same time, don't want to sort of bore people, because I know that it's everything, and every conference seems to be covering it. But I think that, obviously AI is an important topic, and I think that particularly for this conference, and this is sort of what we sort of get, sort of speaking to people on the phone, that last year it was very much a case of, look, you can deploy AI to boost efficiency through documentization, summary, etc. And I think that sort of this year we've gone through a little bit of a shift, and it's like what people are after now is like the practical, I call them like tidbits, like practical nuggets of information that leaders can go back to their teams and really implement. So we were quite fortunate for our Europe show. We had the sort of the head of AI from Zurich, and also Allianz as well. Sort of discussing how they're internally using AI and sort of how that will play out to the future as well. Moving forward, and I think that this will be the same theme within the US show. So we've got the SVP and head of strategic capabilities from New York Life, Alex Cook, speaking. What New York Life are doing on the distribution front, deploying AI, and then we've also got on the underwriting side of things, how does AI become a tool for like the underwriter to make it more efficient. But I think sort of steering away from the innovation and sort of AI front. And I think the thing that I find really interesting, and again, one of the USPs, not to try and sell that the conference is a little bit too much is that it's not just an information technology conference. I think what the thing that sort of makes the event special is that we cover, I'd say, adjacent topics. So like my favorite example that I always use is we've got a sleep neurosurgeon doing a main stage session on the power of sleep. And, some people might go to you and be like, okay, right, that's not distinctly linked to insurance. How is this going to, help me? But I think that, and you guys will both know this, seasoned on the conference circuit, but it's those sort of tangible nuggets, as I mentioned earlier. It doesn't have to be just to do with insurance, and it's again something that a leader can turn up to the conference on the Wednesday, come back all guns blazing on the Monday morning, that they can really like implement within their team. And I think just sort of bleeding onto that is like on the, I guess, less intangible, but slightly sort of different, is on the leadership side of things. Personally, I find this a fascinating topic, having basically spending my day on phones with exec leadership teams, and it like talent is like the number one challenge facing the industry. When my parents' generation retire in a couple of years' time, I think it's not just the technical skills, and the thing that I find most interesting is it's actually like the tangible leadership skills that go with it, and we just don't have the pipeline basically to sort of fill back up. So I think that's a really interesting topic, steering away from the sort of the innovation front that we're looking to cover.
Excellent. Rob?
Yeah, I would just echo that, Tom. And one of the nice things is that you have different stages. Often, you have different sessions going on concurrently, right? So there's usually a plethora of choices in there. And to your point, I think it is a broader menu, right, of sessions, of choices, right? I mean, I always feel like it's so many of these conferences really are mostly about the expo and the networking, and I would say lack a little bit on the content side. But I would definitely say that you guys are, there's always great content going on. And to your point about talent, actually, I moderated a panel last year in Insurtech Insights Europe on talent, and then we had a similar panel again this year. And that's probably the number one topic that I get questions about. And for me, it's always a bit of a challenge to answer. I'm not an HR professional. I'm not a recruiter. So I love moderating those types of sessions and really getting into it. And we dive into the audience questions, and questions can come up through the app, or we even had some old fashioned kind of pass the microphone around hand raising. And so to your point, there's so many that are kind of, I guess, adjacent to technology innovation, but are very meaningful topics and questions that really round out probably what people are concerned about, what they're struggling with, where they're looking to go. And I know talent discussions tend to be at the top of the list.
And just to jump in there, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Rob. It's the way I describe the conference on the phone, and those that haven't attended our events previously, is it's a conference, but I describe it more of like a festival. It's very busy. There's a lot of coming and goings. It's less like this session is this long and then everyone leaves sort of thing. It's very much like people are sort of coming and going, and we've got coffee lounges, we've got ice cream, waffle makers, like a games room. It's I think that sometimes the fun element is missing, and then we really sort of make sure that we inject that into sort of the DNA of our conference as well.
Cool. Hey, let's talk about startups for a second. Insurtech Insights is a platform for startups. Help me understand exactly what the heck that means. How are you supporting startups, and what are you seeing in the Insurtech startup space?
Yeah, absolutely. So regarding sort of, I'd say the assisting of the Insurtechs, I think it's very much like the providing that like environment. Many of these organizations are remote first, which of course has its merits. Here at ITI we're slightly different. We're actually 5 days a week in the office, but I think that often these sort of what's the word, like these Insurtechs, sort of very digital first, can sometimes not lack the culture, but it's very different to like an established incumbent. So often we find that those remote first companies actually use our conferences as a meeting point and as a way of like building their culture. So I think that is really, really special in terms of like promoting insurtechs, and can really in this digital world where talent is is scattered, it's hybrid is not going anywhere. I think that is really valuable to have a date in the diary every single year. You come to Insurtech Insights to network, see the content, but also to build that relationship. And Rob touched upon the sort of fringe events that happen. But I think that is really, really important. But then I guess as a follow up to that as well, I would say the content very much does support insurtechs as well. So a progress that we've made from last year, we've actually introduced the track system to our conferences. It's not new to the world of insurance conferences, but it's new to Team ITI. And one of those tracks is literally called the investment track. And this was basically just to hit on the nerve, when you've got people on the phone saying, look, I need these challenges or these challenges answered. So the topics on that sort of stage range from like, how do you be in a high impact insurtech, so all about finding the right niche, the secrets to capital raising, obviously given sort of H1 of last year, and this drive to profitability that investors are demanding, and then also how to stay on course and basically make sure your impact is having your niche is having an impact. So yeah, I'd say that's sort of how we're supporting.
Yeah, what are you seeing out of the startup scene though? Well, are you seeing more companies contact you? Are you seeing less? Are you seeing companies entering the space? I mean, what are you seeing trend wise with? I know you've only been at ITI for under a year, but what are you seeing out of those interactions?
I would say that as the brand is growing as well, I feel like the involvement is growing as well. I think that the demands of the market, and you guys will probably be aware of this, being dialed into the VC investment banking side of things as well. I think the demands are different. I feel like, as I said about it before, but with what's happening with interest rates, there's no longer technology for technology's sake. Investors want to see this path to profitability, and I think that everyone got a little bit excited. Following the pandemic, there was certainly this influx of new players and this influx of cash that allowed those players to operate. And I think that the start of last year with the supply chain and all of these other sort of external factors shook the ship a little bit. And now it's very much like this drive to profitability, as mentioned from the top. I'd say this is the biggest theme that keeps coming back to when I speak to insurtechs.
Yeah, and certainly we've seen that coming from the funding partners they have, are saying, hey, look, you guys have to have a path to actually making money and generating cash. You can't just keep burning. So it's definitely a shift away from growth at all costs in some regards. Certainly not with everybody, but with many. Rob?
Yeah, Tom, we spent a lot of time talking about the events and understandably so, but just kind of, you guys do more than that. You've got webinars, you've got podcasts, you've got other content. So maybe just for audience members that may not be familiar with all the offerings of Insurtech Insights, you could share a little bit about what else is available to people that might be interested.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're very active on LinkedIn, where we're sort of becoming a bit of a news site for movements and sort of the hustle and bustle of the insurtech world. So we've got over, I think the last time I checked, just before hopping on this call, 113,000 LinkedIn followers, which is pretty awesome. So within that, interweaved of course with the conference information, we've got sort of almost a bit like a wire really of news coming from the industry. Sort of in addition to that, we also run a series of webinars, and this typically is placed within the summer months when we've got the break between the US and of course the Hong Kong show. And we, in fact, my boss Emil, we had a webinar all about distribution this week, about embedded insurance. So I'd say that's where we're lying. We sort of do lean on the conferences quite a lot, but we're much more just a conference company. We're a news and media organization as well.
Well, Tom, if I can just say on a personal note, I've super enjoyed getting to know you, getting to be friends with you. This is you're a part of the insurance community. You're the community living room, right? And I think that's you make that living room happen, a place for us to get together, meet, network, do deals, get to know, learn stuff. it's like the post university conferences are. And so I really appreciate the role that you play in this, and certainly am looking forward. I wish, and just for listeners out there, I would be at Insurtech Insights. I would be speaking at it actually, except that's when I take my daughter. We do an annual school trip to Europe, so I'll be on his side of the pond while he's on my side of the pond during that event. And it's a unfortunately, I won't be able to be there, but fortunately for me, I'll be with my daughter and having a great time, and we're gonna be hanging out. So that's an unfortunate consequence of timing, but you might see me at another Insurtech Insights event later this year, which we're having some I'm just excited about everything that they do and about the size of the events now, because it's a great community gathering place. While I'm a technologist, I believe there's absolutely no replacement for face-to-face contact. There is just, especially because of technology. And I'll tell you this, what I've seen in post-COVID, the last, COVID hit 4 years. It's hard to believe it's been that long. 4 years and 2 months ago. And so what all the companies did, all the tech companies in particular, went to fully automated digital marketing platforms. And so they invested heavily in automated texting, automated emails, and automated phone calls. And so what has that done to your inbox, your voicemail, and your text message inbox? It's blown everybody up. Every insurance executive, every IT manager at every insurance company, they get blown up electronically. And so what have they done as a consequence of that? Well, they've shut down. If you look at like email read rates, text message read rates, phone call answer rates, they've plummeted in the last 2 years because people have been inundated by automated marketing platforms. And so it's just a really great example of how sometimes technology will force people to go old school. And I think that's kind of what the lesson here is. If you really want to do deals, if you want to meet people, if you want to learn, network, you're going to have to do it hand-to-hand combat, in 2024, 25, 26. I mean, you're going to have to get out and meet people and talk to them. And that happens at conferences. And so I'm just excited about the future of conferences. There was a lot of discussion during COVID of whether, the conferences would be permanently digital. Of course, the hilarious thing is that the digital conference went away the second that face-to-face conferences were allowed to happen again. and you also don't underestimate insurance executives and insurance professionals' appetite for a good party. And so I'd always appreciate the role that they play. So Tom, you're a good man, and you've been a good friend. I really appreciate it, and thanks for being on the show. Thank you very much for having me, guys. Yep. And Rob, as always, thanks for your insights into Insurtech Insights. And you're a conference hound like me, so I appreciate you being on and chatting about your experience with these different conferences.
Yeah, happy to, James. And you mentioned our virtual conferences reminded me the content was good, right? It was probably 90% of the content, but the networking, the attendance, I know it was like I would get, randomly plopped at a virtual table to network with. Anyway, very, very awkward. So yeah, very glad to return to the in-person experience for conferences. And the other thing too, I'll add quickly, guys, is to me, it's very efficient, right? The fact that so many people that you could possibly want to network with, either folks that you already have a business relationship with or thinking about establishing a business relationship, or somebody brand new that you don't know, but you never know, right? Spontaneity, serendipity plays a role in this too, right? Goes in. So to me, it's such an efficient use of your dollar if you're picking the right events. Of course, it gets expensive if you're going to every single event, but for some of these tentpole events, and I think Insurtech Insights, all three events fall into this. To me, it's actually a very efficient use of your dollars to attend, because you can accomplish so much in such a little amount of time. Exactly. I agree with that completely. Well, guys, thanks for being on. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in today to geek out with our interview with Tom Robinson from Insurtech Insights. See you on the next show. The Insurtech Geek Podcast is all about technology that's transforming and disrupting the insurance world. I've been your host, James Benham. That's jamesbenham.com, with co-host Rob Galbraith at endofinsurance.com.
We're taking you on a journey through insurance tech, so enjoy the ride and geek out.